All right, I have at the hour, so why don't we get started? Thank you all very much. My name is Peter Milsom, and this presentation is going to be on IPMA's new Consultants, Coaches, and Trainers certification. So this is something that came out recently. Just to provide context for myself, I don't normally show this, but I'm one of those crazy people who goes a little silly on certifications. So I've taken most of these. The interesting thing that I want to point out, though, is if there is a project, program, portfolio management consulting certification, I've probably done it. So I did the previous IPMA, the PPMC and PMC certification, which I was just commenting was really heavy. It was a long, expensive, a little over the top. So they've completely renewed that initiative and changed it to the consulting, coaching, and training certification. I also, all of the APMG, I was a registered consultant for all their methods, PMIs. I had the PMI consulting certification. I'm also a fellow of CMC Canada. So I have some understanding of the different offerings out there. And I can say with absolute confidence that the IPMA version it's good material, very detailed, but reasonably accessible. So let's get started on that. So we'll just do an introduction of what we're talking about in terms of the CC&T from an IPMA perspective. So IPMA, the consultants. So the perspective is consulting is a goal-oriented activity. So you're providing advice and guidance specifically within the realm of projects, programs, portfolio management. Okay, so that's the specific context. So, trying to provide advice and guidance for change and innovation into the organizations. Okay, so that's the consulting side. And what we've found is particularly for project, program, portfolio managers who've been, shall we say, working for a while, you kind of get to a point in your career where you're no longer doing the job, you're, teaching, coaching, or consulting on it. And this provides a great opportunity to have that recognized that you've reached that level, or that's the skill that you're doing, the services that you're doing. So the next one is the coaches. Now, personally, I don't have as much experience. This is one area where I actually don't have any certifications or formal training. But within IPMA, the intent with coaching is it's non-directional forms of development. So if you've got questions or concerns for specific tasks, the coach will help you with various tools and techniques, to develop and learn how to deal with that. Now, for the CCT, all right, there's two sides. We'll deal with that in a second. But the consulting and the coaching is sort of included in the same pathway. And of course, the final part of the CCT is the training component. So what IPMA is offering is that you will be assessed in your ability to provide professional training within the project, program, portfolio management space. So again, going through the materials, and you'll be able to say that once you've gone through the process and been certified, that you have been certified as a professional trainer within this area. So what are we talking about? If you're familiar with IPMA and the certification levels, there are traditionally 4, A, B, C, and D. Now, for the CCT, there's only 3, A, B, and C. All right. Now, in terms of the level A, this applies in both the Certified Executive Consultant and Coach and the Certified Executive Trainer. All right. The intent for this is you are providing delivery leadership in these different areas more for the strategic or organizational development and impact. Okay. And one has to demonstrate the phrase that they use is sort of a profound understanding, a really in-depth understanding in these areas. Now for the level B, and I'm going to be using throughout this presentation, the level B senior consultant and coach, sort of as the example to provide context for what we're talking about in terms of the different bits and pieces. The level B, it's in terms of the delivery or leadership of a team of others, okay? And it's based on the demonstration, what they define as a deep subject matter expertise, okay, in terms of the competency elements, and we'll deal with that in a second. Finally, the level C, okay. The intent of this is more in terms of knowledge theory, okay, across all the relevant competencies. So it's more at an introductory level. It's not as advanced as the A or B in terms of your knowledge, your experience in providing these services. So the next sensible question is, why bother? What's the value? So what is the value proposition for the CCT? Number of things we could say. There is a recognition globally that having sort of that independent verification and certification of your competency is important. How do you distinguish yourself from others? How do you position or recognize this is who I am, this is what I am good at, this is the service that I provide? Having someone like IPMA provide that assessment and rigor and state that you have been certified to provide these services, it's a nice independent proof. Another thing, again with IPMA, unlike other standards and associations, IPMA is its framework, method, process agnostic, which is really nice. So you're not necessarily tied to one specific perspective, if you will. Another perspective or another value proposition. So very clearly, IPMA is defining what the eligibility criteria is, what the functional areas and the responsibilities are, so that everyone can understand this is how we have been assessed, what we've been assessed against, and what we have demonstrated. So that's been clearly clarified. And finally, all of this, it's built on IPMA's leading competency assessment platform. IPMA has years and years and years of doing this. And actually, once again, this is the second release in terms of the consulting side. So they took the lessons learned over the years from their consulting experience and redefined it, repackaged it in a way so that it is more accessible and available to the community. So let's go through the components, what we're talking about, just to provide context of how big is this bread box and what's involved. So requirements. So once again, the example being provided here is the level B consultant and coach, okay? So at the level B level, the candidate must demonstrate that all experience that's being requested has been obtained within the last 5 years, okay? Now, for the eligibility, last 5 years, minimum of 3 years experience with a minimum total of 1,000 working hours as a consultant or coach in project management consulting or coaching activities. So you have to demonstrate this experience, similar to other IPMA certification levels. Now, what are we looking for? For the level B, okay, deep competencies and subject matter expertise for individuals and groups, okay? Now, they define project management. When they say project management, they mean project, program, portfolio. Unlike the other levels, it isn't distinguished, okay? You can have a specialty in portfolio management or a specialty in program management, but it's being defined as project. And again, defining the responsibility for developing and delivering consultancy or coaching, okay, on an individual team or organizational level, okay? And just defining that you've fulfilled that function, okay? So these are the requirements for the level B consultant and coach. So fairly straightforward. It was certainly a lot more detailed, we shall say, for the previous version. So what is this all based on? So some of you might already be familiar with the ICB4, so the individual competence baseline, all right? Now, in the instance of the consultants, coaches, and trainers, there is another competency baseline. So you both have to be evaluated against this one, and you have to be evaluated against this one. And we'll go through that in a second just to make sure that we're talking apples to apples. And we just provided a link here. All of this information is free. You can get the online version, very accessible. just setting stones so that we understand what we're talking about. IPMA competency, again, IPMA is based on this recognition and evaluation of the competency of the individual. So just read off, individual competence is the application of knowledge, skills, and abilities in order to achieve the desired results. But specifically, you have to demonstrate this against certain key competence indicators, okay, which you'll be evaluated against. So it's very factual based, okay? And again, these individual competencies, they address this knowledge, skills, and abilities, okay? So again, this is extended to the CCT evaluation as well. So again, what are we talking about? So these are the IPMA ICB4 competencies, all right? And you are evaluated against each one of these. Keeping in mind that each of these, okay, has key performance indicators that you will be evaluated against, all right? Now, it's important to recognize that for all CCT candidates, you must at least have taken one of the IPMA 4-level certifications. So if you have nothing else, you at least have to take the IPMA level D exam, okay? And demonstrate competency within that. Now, as part of that, you have to demonstrate sufficient evidence of 80% of the project management domain, okay? So you have to demonstrate 80% knowledge and competency within this. So that's the ICB4 competencies that you'll be evaluated against. Then there's the IPMA consultant competencies, okay? Now, these are divided up into specific, and this is for the consultant, there's also one for the trainer and coach, specific, common, and then the basis, all right? Now, with this, candidates must demonstrate evidence of, now it depends the level that you're at. If you're level A, profound subject matter expertise. If you're level B, deep subject matter expertise. And if you're level C, moderate subject matter expertise. But for each of those, okay, it's the expertise of 80% of the CEs defined in this, okay? Now, what do we mean by that? To demonstrate sufficient evidence, okay, against one of these, okay, competency elements, you have to demonstrate a minimum of 50% of the KCIs, key competency indicators, for each competency element. So one of these might be consultancy methods. So of that, you have to demonstrate 50% as part of your submission. So let's now go through what are we talking about in terms of the process. And once again, this is IPMA, so you know it's fairly rigorous, but it is reasonable for the service offering. Okay. Now, once again, if you're dealing with PMAC or many of the other IPMA certification bodies, we do follow ISO 17024, so the standard for certifying persons. So, you know, we're following a detailed and formal process. Now, one of the things should mention that with the ABC, the traditional 4-level certifications, you have to provide information in terms of the complexity of the projects, programs, and portfolios that you are referencing. With the CC&T rules, you do not have to provide that information. Not saying that it isn't important, it's just saying you're not being evaluated against the complexity of the examples that you'll be providing, okay? And once again, all candidates must have at least the IPMA level D. Okay. Now, realizing this is probably a little bit hard to read, I just wanted to show the full process. We'll go through it bit by bit, if that's okay, because I think this is the important point to understand what you would be signing up for if you're interested in this. So starting off, you fill out an application. For PMAC, what we've done, we've created a series of Excel spreadsheets which you can fill out and provide. Obviously, we need a CV for the initial certification. If you're doing the training consulting, the study, the full self-assessment, and the referees. Now, in terms, this is an area where, and I in a previous life, I was the registrar for CMC Ontario, Certified Management Consultants Ontario. So I completely understand, and I've assessed certification bodies within IPMA. I understand that this can be a bit of a tricky thing for individuals. The best example I can give in terms of the application, the self-assessment, the CV, is to pretend that you're filling out a request for proposal in terms of how you are demonstrating this information. You have to clearly show that you have the experience specifically for consulting, coaching, training, and what you've done mapped with the CEs, the competency elements. All right. The best example I like to use for those familiar is if you've ever had the pleasure of dealing with a government request for proposals, those nightmarish grids that they provide you, which you have to provide detailed information on. It's kind of the same thing. All right. Again, as was mentioned before, we're 17024 certified, so we are obligated to follow a certain process. So you need to demonstrate, to show the information mapped against these individual points so that we can say, for the assessors, yes, you have demonstrated these competency elements and these key performance indicators, key competency indicators. So going through the process, you have to have the application, your CV appropriate for this, the full self-assessment, and referee. So two groups, organizations, people that can be interviewed to confirm your capability, capacity, competency within this within the role that we're talking about. So there'll be an eligibility check on your submission. Okay, if it's not, we'll request feedback. If everything goes fine, we go to the next check, which is exam. So either provide the responses or the contacts for the IPMA exam that you've done, just so that we confirm those points that we mentioned before in terms of the 80% evaluation of the competency elements. So we'll have to check that. If that has been done, you've done either you've gone through A, B, C, or D, and again, the requirement is only level D for all of this. If that has been passed, continue on. Otherwise, you'll have to take the exam. At the next case, what we do is we go through a case study evaluation. All right. Now, depending on the level that you go through, you have to provide one or more case studies. So for level C, we only require one case study. For A and B, we require 2 case studies. And all we're asking for, and there's detailed information on this, to provide information so that we can assess you against this specific role. Have you done this work? And have you fulfilled the competency elements specifically for the CCT? Okay. Now, for any one of these, the CV, the full self-assessment, the case study, oftentimes there's going to be a dialogue back and forth. Like I said, for many, this can be, I'll use the word possibly unusual. Oftentimes people aren't used to this sort of submission. So PMAC will work with you so that you understand, what is required, what we're looking for, and we'll move forward with that. So once this is done, we continue on. And once everything else has been passed, there will be an interview. And again, depending on A, B, or C. So if it's C, it is 90 minutes. If it is A or B, it's 120 minutes, so 2 hours. So you will be interviewed. Now, if you're doing the training, we will ask for a short presentation just so we can see your training skills. With the consulting and coach, similar with the extended interview. The intent is for the assessors, so they will have gone through all of your material and all of your submission. If there are some areas where it hasn't been clearly demonstrated, okay, a certain competency element or KCI, we will simply ask questions to try and get more information, to validate, yes, you have demonstrated, this knowledge and understanding. Okay, so that'll be done during the interview process. Now, again, it's possible that you you may not have been able to provide all of the information, at which point the assessors will let you know, like, this is actually what we were looking for, this is what we need more on this. And there might be another interview or another assessment or just a check and balance. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing. But there is a formal process that we have to go through to clearly demonstrate, based on 17024, that you have the required, or you've demonstrated the required competencies. Okay. Now, after this, everything goes fine. There's the final evaluation recommendation, probably providing some feedback, and the certificate if everything goes well. Now, one of the things I like to point out about this process, which it can be perceived as a lot of work, extensive. I personally, and as you've seen, I've done a lot of these. Now, it might be that I'm sucker for punishment, but once you've done it once, it's easy to copy paste for other elements as well. But one of the things that's really neat is it allows the individual to understand, this is what our profession, our discipline perceives as important. You absolutely don't have to get 100% off everything. And in many cases, sort of the more senior you get, the weaker you get in certain areas. But you have to, but it helps you understand, these are the areas where I should at least have awareness and competency and understanding. Now, the level of that will depend on the level you go, ABC, or what you're going for. But it offers the opportunity for you to understand, this is what's important. Maybe I should be, learning some more about this, or maybe I can develop this, or this looks interesting. Maybe I should work on it. I know certainly for myself, when I was doing the original, the PMC and the PPMC, and actually I'd already earned my Certified Management Consultant designation. One of the areas that I was dreadful at was facilitation, which every consultant really, that should be sort of a job requirement, should be a really good facilitator. I was always a horrible facilitator, mainly because I at the time had very strong points of view and perspectives, and I kept influencing conversations towards what I thought was best, which of course is completely wrong from a facilitation perspective. So over the years, recognized that this is as a weakness, took a number of courses and developed that skill, and did well enough that I was actually voted in to be the convener for ISO 21502, the new project management guidance that's replacing 21500, which will be released soon, I'm excited to say, after 3 years. But again, as convener, fundamentally, you are a facilitator. You have to be international and impartial, and you cannot have a perspective on the subject matter. So it's, it was going through this process that I recognized, this is an area that I really need to develop and work on. And, it was a good, it was, very beneficial for myself and for my clients. So that's the process. So just going through that again. All right. And then this is also why there's a certain, cost and time frame associated with this. So we go through all of that. Okay. Now, in terms of next steps, so if you're looking for information on this, you can certainly go to PMAC. Okay, the information, all of these documents are also available there. We provide you with the information and the spreadsheets, as I mentioned, that you could fill out for this. So these are the price points. So for the Certified Executive Consultant and Coach, we've got the member prices, and the non-member prices. And for each of these, we've got level A, level B, and level C. Okay. And this is comparable with others. Now, keeping in mind, from a consulting perspective, not aware of any other that are still really around demonstrating your consulting experience. Again, so for context, the difference between this and for example, the CMC, Certified Management Consultant, the CMC is management consulting. You have to demonstrate a number of expertise within a number of business disciplines and functions. and the process and everything else. For this, you have to demonstrate on the consultant and coach side, understanding of the process and approach for consulting or coaching, and also expertise in project, program, portfolio management. Okay. So again, there's differences between these, but really IPMA is the only one that I'm aware of that is offering this service offering, and I think of the certification, and I think at a very reasonable and well laid out approach and investment. So with that, at 25 after the hour, I will open it up to any questions. Is there anything that you would like some more information on? Anything you'd like more details or context? Okay, so Kevin, there's a question here. Are there any equivalency or advanced placement options for people with similar certifications, example CMC? Right, so excited about that. PMAC and CMC Canada are in discussions to see if we can do something to help facilitate that. So for example, if you have your CMC from Canada, will it be easier, faster, cheaper to go through the process already having that? We are still in discussions on that. Nothing's been finalized, but we recognize the opportunity and we're working towards that. Thanks, Carrie. Is there anything else that we can provide or offer? When we make this presentation available, if there's anything else that would help provide context, please let us know, because we can attach that as well. Again, it's very accessible. The information's available on the PMAC website. The spreadsheet's fairly straightforward. Yes, so Kevin also mentioned the I4PLs and the CSTD. Now, I have not had any conversations with them, but I know Kevin's raised that, and there's an opportunity for partnerships there. And I'm noticing that with a number of the professions. If there is an opportunity, obviously, if you've been recognized as a management consultant, for example, obviously it should be easier to get the consulting designation from IPMA. Obviously, if you've demonstrated proficiency in teaching and training, obviously that should be recognized in terms of an easier process or cheaper process. So we absolutely recognize that, and it's something that we're investing in. So if there are any other questions, I mean, we'll keep this open. The presentation, officially is supposed to go till 1:45, but fortunately, we're fortunate with this one that it's fairly straightforward. Anything else? All right, well, I will keep this up in case there are any questions. Obviously, you can communicate with Kevin for any questions, or reach out to PMAC. More than happy to provide more information. Again, a lot of this is already available. And if nothing else, I think the time spent going through the two baselines, both just the original ICB4, but also the consulting, coaching and training one, it does provide a really interesting opportunity and context to understand or appreciate different perspectives and areas that we should really work towards to improve.
Peter, I have a question, if I may.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask it verbally because I can't type fast enough. It looked like you were ending. I want to sneak one in. So as a certified PM coach or consultant, that's a pretty general, broad area because we have specialties within project management. Some people are specialists in risk management or specialists in scheduling or specialists on construction contracts or what have you, right? We have all these specialty areas. Agile, right? Agile projects. Is there some room within the certification process to recognize specialty areas? Like, can people be certified in their specialty, or does it have to be a broad category?
No. So the way the conversations went is, and this is even within CMC Canada, that's become an interesting conversation. What the certifications demonstrate is that you have the competency capacity, the skill set to provide consulting, coaching, or training services at a particular level, within project program portfolio management or whatever subset of that. The advantage that you have is you can say I am a CCET level A, with a specialty in, as you mentioned, agile or scheduling or something else. So IPMA is not offering that specialization, but they certainly recognize the importance, and that stems to both IPMA being agnostic, but also recognizing that there's a lot of different bits and pieces on this. And that you can, if you can say this is where my subject matter expertise is, you can just qualify. I'm a certified consultant in scheduling, so you can provide. So you've been certified as a consultant or a coach or a trainer, and then you can demonstrate your specialty, whatever that may be. So again, if you're, I don't know, you have one of the PMAC Agile certifications. I'm a certified, consultant, and also demonstrate, within the subject matter expertise of Agile, or again, scheduling, risk, or any of the other, competencies that we include. I know that was a big conversation when we were working on 21502. The intent of 21502 was to be agnostic, not tied to any specific, again, standard framework method approach. And indeed, one of the things that we did is we made the choice to focus less on process and more on practices, which seems to be the direction of industry right now. So people are less focused on the process side and more on the the competency and the practices side, which is kind of interesting. Any other questions? If not, I will say thank you very much.